Hey Soumya, welcome to Brown Girls Read.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us today. We loved your book and we are so excited to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much. That really means a lot to me.
Before we get into the discussion, would you like to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm Soumya Dave. I'm a psychiatrist, mental health advocate, and also the author of Well Behaved Indian Women, which was released July of 2020. I'm also a new mom. So basically, I'm always running around, don't sleep much. But my real passion is to tell stories in a variety of ways and tell stories that uplift women and that hopefully represent the world that we live in. And I'm so excited to be here today because I love the work you do. And it's an honor to be able to have this conversation together.
Oh, thank you. You are a psychiatrist. So, how did you get to be an author? Like, did you always want to be an author or how did you make the jump?
So I always loved reading. I feel like so many of us always love reading and different interests when we're younger, but I always loved books. And I'd heard of people being authors when I was little, but I never thought it was a job that I could do. I grew up with people in scientific fields or in engineering or in law, much more traditional career paths. So I never thought that it was an option for me to pursue something creative. And my father and both of my grandfathers are physicians. So I grew up just hearing about how wonderful of a career medicine is. They all really, really love their jobs. They love patient care. And so I think I was always split in some way. I loved books and I loved consuming them, but I also really loved medicine. It wasn't actually until I was in college and I was taking all of those pre-med classes that I realized that hey, I'm actually going to let go of this part of me that really enjoys the arts. And that doesn't really feel right. And by that point, a lot of adults had been telling me that, hey, you have to pick. You can't be two things. You can't be more than one thing. You have to specialize in life. That's what being a grown up is about. So I actually thought the possibility of being a doctor and an author just wasn't on the table for anyone. And then when I started kind of reading more and more books, I saw that there really was such a lack of South Asian representation in the books that I was reading. I read Jhumpa Lahiri's books, love her so much, always will. I read Born Confused by Tanuja Desai. And everything I could get my hands on. But I always thought, well, what if I did try this one project and see if it could get out there? And then, long story short, and I'm happy to talk about it more, in our conversation, throughout the journey of the idea of the book all the way to publication date, it was a 10-year journey. And I got rejected so many times that through that time and through all of those failures, I actually met people who created careers out of dual interests that may have seemed contradictory in some way. And I learned actually that way that hey, it's possible to actually make a career of your own that maybe doesn't look like something that's already out there, but it can still be very valid and very exciting. And it can represent different parts of you too. You don't have to choose.
Wow,
Absolutely.
that's an inspiring journey, like of 10 years. I feel like when you get rejected for doing something, do you like used to take the feedback of the people and then improve your book? Or did you have the story written all together and then, you just went with it? Like,
A little bit of both. So I wrote the first draft in 2008, and then I started trying to find a literary agent, which is just the first step in trying to get traditionally published. And honestly, my first rejections for the first several years were just a flat out no or a no response. So I didn't have much feedback to take in order to incorporate and improve the book. And then I kept rewriting the book because, I was learning how to write really through writing this book. I very naively thought that, oh, I have an idea, it's going to get published in a year. And that was so far from the truth. But really through rewriting and reading more books and reading craft books on writing, going to workshops, I learned more about just the art and craft of storytelling itself. So I ended up writing about 12 to 13 full drafts of the book, and it changed a lot through all those drafts. And then I made countless changes on the other kind of smaller chapters. But after I made changes, I realized that my rejections became more detailed. Just like you were saying, people gave me feedback and they would say, I liked this, I didn't like this. And I would usually take a step back and sit with it. Even if I wouldn't always incorporate it, I would wonder, hey, is this professional, who's in the field, who's reading stories all the time? Do they have something to it? And then if I got rejections that said something similar, so if I got 5 to 10 rejections that said something similar, I would definitely take that in and see, if there's something there worth holding on to. Actually, the rejections are the way that the character of Nandini in my story came to be. I got 10 rejections on the day of my wedding for the book. And
Oh my
all of them
God.
actually said that they liked this one chapter I had at the time that was from the main character's mom's perspective. And a few of those rejections asked me, would you ever consider her being a bigger part of the story? And that's really actually how she came to be such a big part of the story, because of those rejections.
Since you're talking about Nandini, one of the characters that we absolutely loved and related to was Nandini's as well. Was that based on a real life person?
Yes and no. So I actually got the idea for her because at that point the book was a big romantic comedy about planning a Desi wedding and having drama. It was pretty simple, and I thought it was fun and light and had themes that my friends and I had been through during our own wedding planning and things like that. And then when I was a third year medical student, which is when we do our clinical rotations, I did them all in very rural Georgia. And I realized during the rotations that sometimes I was the only person of color that the patients and the staff saw on some days. And during one shift, I was on my OBGYN rotation. I went to go check on the new mom the morning after the delivery, and she had a lot of family members in the room celebrating with her. And so I was in my scrubs. I had been up all night. My hair probably looked like a beehive on my head. And I walked in and I said, "Oh, hi, how are you doing?" And one of the family members stepped aside and they said, "Oh, you can leave. The lady who takes out the trash already came by."
Oh
Oh
no.
my God. So that
Yeah.
really happened with you.
Yeah. And I
That's
couldn't believe that that was what I heard. And in my imagination, if someone said that to me, I would fight back. But what I really ended up doing was I just went back. I was in shock. I was quiet. And I went back to the call room they had for medical students. And the first thought that came to mind was, what would Nandini do? Because again, at that point, she was just Simran's mom. She was a physician. She was exactly who she is now. But I wondered, what would someone like that have done? And so I started interviewing family friends who trained as female physicians back, came from India, came here to do their training again, and just learned all their stories. And it was so fascinating to just see everything they overcame and everything they faced. And that really then helped me develop her character further.
We really loved that you kind of highlighted this insidious racism and sexism that happens, because both of us are also immigrant women who now live in the US, and we have seen some flavors of it in different shape or form. I'm understanding that you kind of made a conscious choice to highlight that.
Absolutely. It was something that then I realized people were talking about, my own colleagues who are women of color were talking about, but it was almost like this big secret that was accepted that, hey, this is what we deal with and it's not right, but we don't feel like we can speak up because there's such a power dynamic in most jobs. And there's a fear that speaking up will lead to your own retaliation. And I just found that so sad. And I wondered, why isn't this more openly discussed? And, what is there we can do about it? And so when I was thinking of Nandini, the first thing that came to mind with her chapters was, I need to show her facing this and see how she really processes that.
That's really true, actually. I am always talking about this with my friends, and we have talked about in the podcast as well, that sometimes we don't even realize, that this sort of thing is sexist or racist, right?
True.
And then we end up saying, oh, we have never encountered racism or sexism in our lives, right? But we have. So what you brought out in the book made us, so I think made me also realize when I was reading it that this has happened with me. This is sort of sexism and racism. That was really good.
Oh, thank you. No, it's so true. I feel like it's only in conversations with other people we'll realize, hey, this is happening and this is a real thing that we don't need to put up with. So you're so right that it's only when we talk to each other and share our own stories that we see that these things are so prevalent.
Right.
Yeah, and that's how we challenge what's been normalized for years, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that idea that people just define you right when they see you before you even open your mouth, or you do your job, or you do whatever you're there to do. They just already have a view of who you are and what you represent and all of that.
Yeah. So I want to come back to the book a little bit. The title of the book is super catchy. And I think any Indian woman would pick the book because of the title. Did you decide the title, or how did you come up with this title in the end, if there was a process of choosing?
Great question. So when I was writing the book for those many years when I was getting rejected, it was actually called Arranged Dating, because I just wanted to do a play on arranged marriages and dating. Then when I actually was on the verge of giving up, I got a slew of rejections from editors when I was in residency saying, there's not space for a South Asian book on the market. There already are enough. We don't see this, being appealing to a broader audience. So I told my husband, I think I'm going to put this away. I gave it my all at that point, it had been 8 years, and said, I gave it my all. And I think that it's time to just say, hey, it's not going to work out. And so I was feeling very sorry for myself and throwing dramatic pity parties in our apartment. And a few days into that, he said, "Hey, you really like the quote, 'Well-behaved women rarely make history.' And you've quoted it to me so many times, and I didn't even realize I had." And then he said, "So I think 'Well-behaved Indian Women' is actually the title of this book. I don't think it's arranged dating. I think it's this." And we both loved it. Right when he said it, we just knew it was some kind of, super, I don't know, it felt like a greater force was in the room. And we both knew that had to be the title. And at the end of the day, a publisher does have the final say in your title. They're allowed to change it. So we were prepared for that to happen. But when my agent went out on submission for it, she said, "Everybody loves this title." And I said, "That actually is all my husband. I really can't take any credit for it." And funny enough, I actually based the character of Neil off of him. So whenever I've told people that, "Oh, actually he came up with the title," they say that's such a Neil thing to do.
Yeah.
Wow. I love this.
That's so true. Yeah. And since you're talking about Neil, he is probably the most loved man in the story, like loved character in
Yeah.
the story. Also, like to me, he seemed like one of those, Bollywood heroes who's like too good to be true sometimes. And it broke our hearts, when Neil and Simran didn't end up together. So why did he choose this ending?
Yeah, the ending has come up so many times because I think it does create feelings. I've had people reach out to me saying, "Oh, I wish she had her happily ever after love story. Why did you do this?" And from the beginning, when I started the book in 2008, I made so many changes, like I was saying, throughout the years on the manuscript. But the one thing that stayed the same was that ending. I wrote that ending over 10 years ago, and it stayed the same. And I think it was because I wanted it ultimately to be a book about her own journey and her own self-discovery. And
Right.
I still personally feel, now I'm a lot older than Simran is, so maybe that's a part of what's playing into it. But when I think of her, I think of someone who still has some growth left to do on her own before she maybe finds that perfect partner for her. And I actually had someone reach out to me on Instagram. It was great, a few weeks ago, and they wrote an ending that's 5 years in the future for Simran and Neil to meet on a reporting trip. And I loved it. I thought that was really
Oh,
sweet.
wow. Where can I find that?
She sent it to me in a message, so I don't know if she's going to post it somewhere, so I'll let you guys know if she does. But I said, this is better than anything I could have done.
I guess also like the ending sort of made it more realistic, right? Like usually when something like this happens to you, you don't end up going back to the person that made you feel that way, right? You just take your time and start to, evaluate your decisions and your life and then go back to it. So yeah, it was sort of realistic as well.
Yeah, it's just
thank
the
you.
Bollywood side in us that wanted like
Yeah.
that romantic
Yeah.
ending.
No, that's totally fair. It is. And I think it could have worked also if she did end up with him. I think it would have worked as with the book. And I don't know if it would have taken away so much. I just saw her as still having her own journey. And I thought it would be a really nice contrast to what happens with her parents. Her parents come back closer together. And I thought it could be a really great way to just show how different the two couples really are. I guess in Simran's case, the potential couple, but really, what does it mean for someone to help you grow, and how long should they stay in your life? Do certain people fulfill a purpose for a certain period of time? Are certain people meant to stay there forever? And how do we make those decisions?
Yeah, I loved also what you did with Nandini and Ranjit, because to me it was like a healthy relationship, which probably didn't start as a healthy relationship, but became one eventually. So it shows people can change and they can grow if they really want to.
Oh, yeah, totally. It's so funny. My friends and I, all of us whose parents had arranged marriages, we've often had conversations with each other, as friends, saying, what would it be like if they were just given communication classes right when they met?
Yeah.
Back in the day, how just saying certain things, very simple things, would that have changed things back then and now? And so their relationship really was inspired by those questions that came up, because I think it's so fascinating that it doesn't always take a lot to grow closer to a person. Sometimes it does, but in their case, they had everything there for each other. They just didn't really realize it.
Yeah. Since we talked about Neil and relationships, I also want to commend how you wrote Kunal, because he was just like this good catch in terms of the brown people criteria. But as you go along the story, there are all these subtle red flags, which is something that I think happens more than we think it does. That's why I really liked how you wrote him.
Oh, thank you. He was inspired by a relationship I was in my early 20s, where really what kept it going was it's good enough. It's good enough. And that theme came up with friends also when they were talking about their own relationships, that, okay, is good enough what the bar is, and what are the criteria that make someone you want to be with forever versus a good relationship to learn from. And I think so many of my own friends and I were so confused about those things and how to make the distinctions. And Kunal really represents that he is a good guy who has great goals. He's ambitious, he's hardworking. And it's funny, he's come up more in book clubs than any other character in the book. I mean, people are so polarized about him. I've had people reach out to me saying they absolutely can't stand him, and then others saying that he's so misunderstood and it's not fair the way he was treated and portrayed. And I think that's also valid because he has these different sides to him for sure. And he also is a product of his own environment, and maybe with another partner, he would be completely happy and fulfilled, and so would the partner.
That's true. And also, like, about polarizing, like, I can imagine if I make my mom read this book, she would side with Kunal because, to her, he's like a perfect Indian groom that she would want for her daughter.
And
so,
also
yeah.
from her point of view, she probably would think Kunal is not asking for much. Like, girls are supposed to be this way or something, right? So in that case, you would not question anything about Kunal.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
So this is a question we ask all our guests. Like, what are you reading right now, and what books would you recommend?
Ooh, I would recommend the last book I just read. I literally just finished it. A Place for Us by Fatima.
Oh, I love that book. Yes.
It's so beautiful. And it's a long book. And I think it's part of the beauty actually is the length. It's the story that just has to sit with you for a while. But the way things just unravel with this family. And I loved the ending too. I just think she shows us different parts of these family members, and you think about them differently with each scene. And that just, to me, is true talent as a writer. So she's a brilliant artist. I'm a big fan. And also, funny enough, I saw that she married Riz Ahmed, who I'm also a big fan of. So I would definitely recommend that book. I think it's a beautiful family story. Another really fun book I read was Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. Have you heard of that one? It's really, it's a great book with motherhood and social media and people having good intentions, but maybe still really not doing great things. And I just thought it was a very fun, light read. And I read it right when I was pregnant with my son. And then I read it again after he was born and actually saw it differently. And I think that's such a cool thing about books is that when you reread them, if you are rereaders, they can affect you differently at different parts of your life.
Yes, definitely.
Oh, a third one that I read that I loved was The Henna Artist by Alka Joshi. She's also just such a cool person and she's so inspiring. And so, yeah, I would say that was one of my top books actually of the past year.
Mm-hmm. Another question that I had is that if Well-Behaved Indian Woman would turn into a movie, who would you like to star in it?
Oh my gosh. Someone sent me pictures of everyone they pictured in the cast, which I love.
Oh, wow.
But I've gotten actually a few people have told me that they see the mom, Nandini, as Purna Jagannathan, who's also in Never Have I Ever as the mom.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I could actually really see that. Ranjit as Neil Kapoor. Neil, I've gotten a few responses from. Again, I picture Neil as my husband, so maybe I'm not the best judge, but someone just told me the other day that they pictured, I think his name is Rohan Oza or on Shark Tank. Do you know the businessman? They pictured someone like him, or Dev Patel when he has his hair really grown out.
Oh, right.
I also imagined him with like hair grown out. I imagined him like the younger version of the dad in Never Have I Ever.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
that guy's cute. I totally would take that. Yeah.
And who would Simran be?
I don't know. So I've pictured the actress, I know she's a Bollywood actress, Shraddha Kapoor.
Oh, right. Yeah,
because I think she just has this very sweet and feminine disposition about her. And I don't know, I just see her as being this quintessential girl that all boys would like, and then also just represents the every woman in a way. I think she has a really cool feel about her that way. And then who else is left? Oh, Nani Farida Jalal came to
mind. Wow.
Best Nani ever.
Yeah, she really is the best Nani ever. And let's see who else is left. Oh, Kunal. There's an actor, Manish Dayal, who's on The Resident, and he actually plays a doctor and is always wearing scrubs. And so I thought that he really looked like Kunal to me.
Interesting. We would love to see that movie. I wish it is made into a movie.
Oh, thank you.
So what are you working on now? Like, is there a new book that we can expect from you?
Yes, my second book is coming out in June. It's called What a Happy Family. I'm actually going to probably be announcing that this coming week on my platform. So it's called What a Happy Family. It's a separate story. It's about a modern day, again, South Asian family. And the overarching theme of that book is mental health and the ways we talk about it, the ways we don't, and also how our families shape us in good and bad ways. So those are kind of the two main driving forces of that book. But it has everything from stand-up comedy to imposter syndrome to interracial marriage and to emotional abuse. So a lot of themes covered in that book. So I'm excited to hear how people feel about it.
I think we are sold on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to read it for sure.
I always wanted to write something about mental health that covered just
Right.
how mental health is perceived in the South Asian community and how people talk about it and how people have shame around it, how people embrace it. And I haven't really seen that too much in books yet. So it felt like the right thing to pursue.
Yeah, I think we need more conversations around that. Like, I'm happy there are conversations happening now, but we still need a lot more than that.
So true.
Before we end our discussion today, we just have one last question for you. Is there a message or advice that you would like to share with our listeners today before you go?
Yes, I think that everybody has a story in them, and whatever form that story takes, whether it's a poem, whether it's a conversation, a book, whatever it is, we need it in our world because we always need more stories that represent the world we're living in. So if the listeners out there have an idea or a thought that's just sunk its teeth into them and it won't let go, there's something there. And I would love to see it someday, no matter what it is. I've heard from people who love books and love stories. And I think those are the exact people who I want to see stories from in the coming years.
I love that. Thank you for sharing,
Yes.
Soumya.
Daman, are you listening? This message is for you.
Yes. I know.
Are you a writer?
No, I keep saying I want to write a book, and Kathy's really on my case now.
If you keep saying it, there's something to it. That means it's something you have to do.
Yeah, I know I have to do that. It's just a matter of like prioritizing other stuff.
No, life is hard and chaotic for sure. But with that being said, I'm excited to read yours when you're ready.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Soumya, thank you so much for joining us today. It was so much fun discussing your book and all the characters with you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, and we are looking forward to your next book, What a Happy Family, for sure.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I'll keep you posted.